The following podcast is sponsored by Luminary Leaders, Sedan Associates, and Connected Women of Influence. Enjoy the episode.
My name is Shelly Harrison, and you're listening to Speaker Central. On this episode, we talk about career pathing to success. My guest today is the Vice President and partner of Path2 and former NFL football player of the Seattle Seahawks, Dave DeRocher. So tell us about yourself, Dave.
Well, I think you got about half of it in the introduction. I do a few other things. I am very much entrenched into the Path2 platform, and I think we're going to talk about that in more detail as the interview goes along. Yeah. But I guess maybe I'll add a couple of the things that are really passionate to me. One is that I am a co-advisory board member for the Mission Sports program. It is a faith-based sports program that we're bringing to Orange County, Southern California, and it's going to be a safe place for kids to come and utilize sports as a catalyst, and then talking about character building and about health and about the Word, and it's going to be a great thing that we are launching. We already have requests throughout the country to bring it to Detroit and Florida. So that's really a lot of fun. But as you can garner from that, I really enjoy working with kids and speak a lot to kids and volunteer throughout Southern California at sports camps and youth camps and leadership camps. And that's really where my passion is.
Yes. Yeah. And I know, you've been doing this for quite some time and speaking at a lot of high schools too, and particularly with Path2. So tell us what inspired you to partner with Path2.
So it was Christmas of 2000, and boy, time flies.
It does.
So I believe it was 2016. I was sitting with the founder of the company, Dr. Richard Ellison, who was explaining to me this program that he had developed and the rationale behind why he came up with the concept. And we had been talking, and when I am actually engaged to his niece, so it's
engaged. Oh, nice.
And he said, "Well, gee, Dave, okay, so you played professional football, you went into acting, you became a general contractor and a project manager for a development firm, you attained all your licenses and did investment planning for 20 years. You were vice president of a bank. You've done all of these things." And at a fairly high level, would you be interested in taking my program? It's something that helps students define what their best suited career is, so they can define a major and help navigate, the collegiate experience and have a successful collegiate experience. So I said, sure. And at the time, and we'll talk more about Path2, but at the time, he printed out an Excel spreadsheet. I went through the initial stages of the program, wrote them out on the paper, graded them according to his proprietary process, which is just literally brilliant, and why this thing has taken off.
Yes, he is, and I've met Dr. Ellis.
Yes, and then when I started watching this progress and go through it, I'm seeing how really just great this is. Yeah. When I got done, I said, "Okay, Dick," I said, "here's my thoughts. Yes, it is great for high school students. Absolutely. Yeah. It's also really good for kids sitting in junior colleges, because a lot of kids choose junior college as a way to figure things out one class at a time. Not a great, or very efficient way to do things. As we all know, and what we've learned is that there's a lot of kids about ready to graduate with their degree. They have no clue what they're going to do with it." Yeah. The other thing that really came to me as I was doing this is I started thinking about myself as an ex-professional athlete. And I really didn't have an exit strategy. I didn't have a game plan to once the game was over. And it just ends before you know it. And so I went to selling cars, and so I thought, boy, we could really help professional athletes with this. And then immediately the next thought, because this is, I'm kind of this person. I really think bigger picture. And I said immediately, what about all the veterans that are transitioning from service to civilian life, and they're granted this very small GI Bill that can't be squandered on trying to figure out life? And so, and then I said, and all the people that hate their jobs. There's so many commercials out there, that
there are.
Yeah.
People that have been in their jobs for 20, 30 years and
Right.
they don't know how to exit. They don't have an exit strategy.
Yeah. And they wish they would can do something else, but they're already in jobs they don't like, and they don't want to make the same mistake twice. But so when I got done with that, he looked at me and said, wow, because I've not been so excited about my own program since I started this 2 years ago. Would you want to come work with me? And I said, sure. And then we went to work. And so it's been very rewarding, and it's been more than what we thought it could be in a very short time. And it's because we really do have something.
Yeah. Well, and I particularly love all the connections that you're making with the different organizations, with the high schools, with, the just all of the schools that you've been coordinating with, and most recently with the Youth Business Alliance too, with the LA County school district. And I have to give you a shout out. You and I met on a actually in LA for another podcast with our friend Daniel Pooter.
Yes.
And and that day you met my son. And back then my son was 17, and it was awesome because you gave him a scholarship to take the program Path 2, and it was profound. I mean, he had amazing results come from it. So I mean, kudos to just the whole process and Path 2. And I think more high school students and even the other groups that you had mentioned need to know about this program.
Well, and that's what makes it fun. That's what makes it so rewarding every single day, is that somebody has gone through it and found themselves and found things about themselves that they didn't know, or they maybe thought, but then we were able to empower them, right? To move forward, to go forward with confidence, to put together a collegiate game plan.
Yeah.
And, it's amazing to see, like, because this is what we do. You sit down with students and they have no clue what they want to do. And, people say, Google it. Well, they're only going to Google what they know. They're not going to Google windmill engineer. They're not going to Google GIS, geographical information systems. They're not going to, but we expose them to those things through our platform. And then to see them say, wow, I didn't even know that existed. Half the time we say, we didn't either. But how cool is it? And look how much money I can make. And this is the education that I need. And this is going to touch on all my interests and all my preferences and all my traits. And I could do this. And I've been talking about this for over 3 years now. You can see how I get excited every time.
Very passionate.
It just is so
Which is great.
And then, I go, and I've been very blessed to be invited to a lot of programs with nonprofits that are doing such great works. And looking around a room, I went to the Hope program in downtown LA, and was surrounded by 800 young Latino women that had these great speakers up on stage. Influencers, congresswomen, women engineers, all day long.
Yeah.
And I was with a good
That's
friend
empowering. That's very empowering. Yeah.
Yes, I was invited by Dr. Betty Uribe, and I sat next to her, and I looked over and I said, Betty, look at all these young women, looking at those women and getting inspired.
Yes.
Which is good.
Mm-hmm. That's where it starts. That's where it starts for those young women.
But here's the problem. Inspiration without empowerment, right, can fade. And where are they going to get the empowerment? Where are they going to get the confidence to say, yes, young gal, you can be an engineer? When at home, their parents maybe don't really understand what an engineer is or what it entails, or they can't really support. They'll do anything for their child, but they can't give them that affirmation of, yeah, you can be. They'll just say you can do whatever you want. And so I said, if you don't empower inspiration fades. The Tony Robbins effect. You go to a Tony Robbins and you think you can sell to the world until you realize you can't. But if you go and the minute that the inspiration starts to fade and self-doubt creeps in, it's done. It's demolished. So if we could be that bridge to inspiration, to empowerment, to now I can do this regardless. I just got to go to work. What a great position to be in. What a great thing to be able to do for young people.
Yes. And it's very individualized too, because I know when my son went through it, it gave him two different paths that were very similar. He explored one and realized, wait a minute, I'm not really going to do this, but I'm going to do this. So he went from singing, wanting to be a singer, to being in theater, singing and acting. So, and those were the two things that were, so he's very much, excited about that. And the one thing that I wanted to ask you, and I ask all my guests this, is, and you're going to fill in the blank. Okay. And it's just whatever comes to your mind. It's a trick question. I'm blown away at how my company fill in the blank.
And this is simple. It helps so many people. I share this all the time. It is so fulfilling to be a part of something that every meeting I have, by the time I'm 3 sentences in, people are acknowledging, shaking their head, going, wow, yeah, oh my gosh, that makes sense. Yes, I wish I wish my son could, I wish my sister, and then not only do I leave that meeting with next steps, but I'm given 2 to 3 other verticals. I'm given, you should speak to, and you should speak to. And already in my cachet of people to follow up with, I have 2 phone numbers to the DOD at the Pentagon for people involved with veterans, to try and assist veterans, from people that were given to me by leaders of universities, because they see the value of what we're doing. How much fun is that? How much fun is to not go in and try and, hey, look, we got this new version of a sponge and you really need this sponge. No, this is something that everybody can benefit from. I've talked a detail about the students, but we also have a career transition program. And gosh, there's about 70 to 80 million people that hate their jobs, and 40 million people transition every year. So,
well, and don't you think now too, especially with COVID-19, now that people are home, maybe they've lost their job, and now they're rethinking, maybe I'm not fit for that kind of a career, and maybe they want to change career paths.
Well, the presentation I made just the other night touched on that exact fact. And that is, folks, we can look at everything through a lens, right? And how are you going to look at things? How are you going to look at these times? And, to me, what an opportunity. Everything's been put on hold. Everything's been put on pause. Yeah, and whereas in the past, people that have disliked their jobs couldn't leave. They felt trapped because they had monthly obligations. They had their rent due. And we all still do, but there is some relief. There's relief from car payments. There's relief from credit card payments. There's relief from student loans for those students that went right to a job because they felt pressured because they had student loan payments. There is relief that will allow you to take 2 to 3 months to reevaluate yourself and find that career that you're going to be happy and successful, more likely to be successful doing. Of course, success has different variations, but find that thing that you're going to be happy doing. We didn't know that this was going to be available to us even just 2 months ago. And what's going to happen is that all those slowly things will change. But before you know it, if it's going to be 6 months to a year down the road, you're going to be remiss if you didn't take advantage of this time where you could really make that change. Some of us are going to be forced to. There's going to be a lot of industries that will displace people for a long time. They're going to have a hard time transitioning back to. So look at it as a positive. Reevaluate yourself and make something from this, and there's no bad that can result from that, right? So
and that's a great point, because I think a lot of people, they don't have hope, or they they may not know of all those resources that are available. I mean, kind of off topic a little bit, my daughter, who's in college, and she was able to get her parking reimbursed, so I mean, parking, who would think of parking? It's all about education, but I mean, there are a lot of things out there that people could be taking advantage of, and maybe we'll find some resources and include them in the show, in the credits in the end, so
a great idea.
People can take advantage. Next question, Dave. What are you wildly excited about when you think of the direction of your specific role with Path 2?
Well, it allows me to do what I love, and that is work with young people and to you use the word hope, to bring hope to young people and give them things to think about. Because when I was growing up, we didn't have all these resources. We had our coach. Well, we had our coach, we had our parents, we had our immediate neighbors or family or whatever that was around us, and encyclopedias.
And encyclopedias, what are those?
That was our resources.
We have them in our cabinet.
Right. That was our resources. And, and gosh, when I talk about the things that I learned growing up and then how I was able to then, go back and utilize that in my professional career, and then now enlighten young people to be aware, to be cognizant of the things that failures or setbacks or, anything that you're dealing with, you could use it as a learning experience. But what I love about what we're doing now is it gives me that I could travel. I went to Vegas and spoke to a group, Inspire Children, that takes people that are kind of at risk, puts them on pause for a minute, puts them through their program, uses tennis as a catalyst, but then they put on a whole weekend spread, and they had 5 kids up on a panel: Dartmouth, Stanford, Cornell, UNLV, and Georgetown. Granted scholarships. One that was going to Brown, it was Brown. The Gates Scholarship up to PhD. And these are all kids that struggled when they were young. To be able to sit in a room with that and to be, a representative of somebody that can help them. What's crazy is the young gal that was going to Stanford and the one that was going to Brown weren't 100% sure they were going to study. Oh. Did you think about the stress?
Intense.
I'm very empathetic. I think about, hey, everyone says, wow, how awesome. Look what you're given. And that young person's going, I don't know what to do with it. And to have that burden of to not have a path and then to show up on campus and just not, if we can release that angst and say, gee, man, you got this scholarship and you know what? I'm going to be this. I am going to be this and I am going to do it. And I'm not going to be, Psych 101 is interesting to everybody, but that's Psych 101.
Yeah.
So but don't go there, stay on your path, know your game plan the minute you step on campus and go there with confidence, not stress.
Yes. Yeah. And I think 2 things that poke out at me with path 2 is awareness and clarity. So students or, career development or people that are, looking for careers or a different path, that's what they can gain by going through this program. And, and I could say that firsthand again, because I know my son went through it. Tell us the story of the jump rope and how it would serve you years later. You and I had a conversation about that a few months back, and I'd love to have you share that story.
Well, I will. And, it's funny because when you said it that way, I was talking to a school, Kennedy High School, and I told them the story, and I put a camp on for them and for local kids. And they gave me a nice gift at the end, and all the kids started chanting jump rope. I thought it was like the coolest thing. So anyways, here's the story.
I love how it starts.
When I was in high school, I was a junior in high school. And of course I was 6'7", but gangly.
Kind of short, right?
Yeah. And the new high school football coach came up to me and goes, hey, big guy, you got to play football? And I said, no, coach. And he goes, well, how come? I said, well, I like basketball. I've got a couple of scholarship offers. I had one scholarship offer to Cal State LA, small school, offer nonetheless, and a couple of other schools that were sending me information. And I had just made it to the final cut for the Olympic Junior Olympics. Oh gosh, I forget what even one it was, but I was pretty good. And he said, well, if you came out and played football, I bet I can get you a better scholarship. I go, coach, I'm not very good. So he said, but try it. And I wanted to be good. I love football. I just said, okay, well, I'm not going to do it. And actually the basketball coach talked me out of it. So anyhow, the new coach talked me into it. I went out to practice, and a couple of days later, he pulled me aside and he said, son, you're not very good. Like, hey, thanks, coach.
Not what you want to hear.
Trying to tell you. He goes, oh, you've got the size and you've got the athletic ability, but you need some help with your footwork. And he says, here's a jump rope, and you need to learn how to jump rope. And, immediately I thought, okay, what does jump rope have to do with football, the most manly sport? And then you're giving me something a girl does, right? And the last thing a 17-year-old uncoordinated kid wants to do is something that a girl does and do it poorly in front of anybody. So I said, okay, fine. I took the jump rope home, and one at a time, hit my toes. If any of you have jumped rope and hit your toes with a jump rope, you know it hurts.
Yeah.
But I slowly started to navigate it and figure it out to the point where I actually got pretty darn good. And I remember distinctly coming back to school one time because he showed me how to jump rope. I said, "Hey, coach, how fast can you jump rope?" And he saw me do it. And he said, "Wow, good for you." Did it make me any better at football? No, it didn't. But it gave me some confidence, and I was able to do well enough that what he promised me came true. And I had offers from Cal, U of A, Hawaii, Cal State Fullerton for a dual scholarship, football and basketball, and then of course San Diego State, which I ended up choosing.
Yeah, that's right.
So go on down to San Diego State, and I think it was like the second day, the offensive line coach got all of us freshmen out there, and what do you think he handed us all? A jump rope.
Yeah.
And all of those guys, all the other guys looked at it like I did when I was 17. When my high school coach gave it to me, they go, "Okay, what are we doing with this?"
Yeah.
I went right to skipping to my loo, and doing.
And everybody else was miserably hitting their feet.
Oh my
right?
gosh! And they're looking at me. But guess who else looked at me? My coach.
Yes.
Right? My coach looked at me. Wow, look at this guy. And it immediately set me apart from the other guys standing next to me. They were looking at it dumbfounded. And that was a life lesson for me. It was a life lesson that when somebody advises you to do something that's in your best interest, whether you want to do it or not, you should at least listen to that person and make your best efforts, because you never know when it's going to pay off or how it's going to better you.
Yeah.
So,
and there's something that they see in you that you don't see in yourself,
right.
and all you need is direction and guidance. Right.
Yeah.
And that's what he did.
And I don't know that jump rope ever made me any better, but I will tell you that it gave me confidence, the fact that I was able to figure it out. But it did also benefit me in my coach's eyes when I went down to San Diego State, because I immediately was the guy, and I heard him talking. This kid can jump rope, he can do this, look how tall he is, look how big he is, and he can move.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with football, but it has a lot to do with confidence.
Well, and
it helps a lot.
Yeah. And the exercise, the discipline, and the skill that it takes to really jump rope, because they're probably
if anybody out there is laughing, go jump rope. If you've not done it, I mean, I'm talking like jump rope, So
yeah.
It's a workout. It's a great workout.
It is. So is football and all those other sports too.
Yes.
You've shared with me that you're writing a book, and I know that it's kind of gone the direction of, hey, big guy. What kind of an update can you give us, and what do you think? What do you want fans? Or let me rephrase that. Time out.
That's fine.
Okay. So you've shared with me, Dave, that you have a book in you, and you've been writing. Yes. And what can your fans expect to hear from you about the content of this book? And I believe I know the title, but I don't know if you've kind of settled on that yet. So give us an update.
Well, so the title, and I've had this in the back of my head for 15 years, probably, if not longer. And the title is Hey, Big Guy. And the reason why is because I used to be big. Some will still say that I am, but at my largest, when I played up in Montreal, I was 6'7", 360 pounds. And that put me in the 99.8 percentile. So bigger than most humans. And that's the title. It's Hey, Big Guy, a guide to growing up bigger than most. And here's why I named it that. It's because I've always wanted to write a book, Hey, Big Guy. Everyone greets me that way. That's how all conversations start. It's like, hey, big guy, or hey, big guy, what's up? So it's what happens after that. And it's like, okay, how's the weather up there? And, how tall are you? Are you a wrestler? Are you a football player? I bet you were a jockey. Do you play tennis, badminton, And it's been kind of a funny thing to watch whomever I'm with, especially significant others, because they just roll their eyes because they know it's about to start, the conversation. And then, it's about, my whole theory on big and tall stores are not big and tall, it's big or tall. And so for me to be able to find clothes is difficult. I can't shop at a mall. They don't fit in most cars. And then, so there's all kinds of funny scenarios, and I've had a lot of funny stories, I think, and solely because of my size. People engage me, and things are afforded me because of that. But then in earnest, when I looked at it, I knew that was like 10 pages. It wasn't a book. It was some funny innuendos, funny quippets, but it wasn't a book. And it wasn't until a mom that I was explaining my great idea about a book said to me, I wish you would talk to my son because he is bigger and he's ashamed to take his shirt off. He gets teased. He gets bullied and he doesn't feel like he fits in. And I said, there is my book. Because in my mind, it's all the great things that have happened to me because of my size. But really, when I was growing up, I had two friends. I was shy. I didn't feel comfortable about myself. Back then, the big and tall stores, I couldn't fit in any of the cool clothes. I had to wear, the butterfly velour shirts. That isn't cool. So I didn't fit in. I didn't take my shirt off. I wasn't comfortable with the way that I looked. I was bullied in 7th grade so bad to the point that I didn't want to go to any school events because when I walked down the hill from PE, there'd be 2 or 3 ninth graders that would leg swipe me from behind. And then what am I going to do against 2 or 3 ninth graders? If I went to school dances, they'd hit me from behind. I'd turn around, there'd be 2 or 3 of them standing there. So that was my book, is that how did I persevere? How did I deal with those things? And then, my thought process is, hey, young man, your time will come. And there's been plenty of studies showing, people of size have much higher earning potentials and all this stuff that I didn't know growing up. But it was difficult growing up bigger than most. And the other thing is that people, around us, everybody says, I wish I was you. And my first sentence is, it's overrated because there's so much to it, being bigger. And yes, I've embraced it. I think I've shared with you that I'm really good at titles. My next title, because I had a girlfriend once say, Dave, you always want so much attention. Like you just garner attention. And I said, all I did was walk in. I didn't do anything. She says, well, can't you just blend? So the next title of my book, because I had a lot of people then with differences, like Daniel's producer, right, that we met.
Yes.
Just completely different, is that my next title is going to be I Don't Blend. And how would we embrace our differences? What makes us different? And we all have something that makes us different that sometimes we're a little bit embarrassed of. But those that embrace it really have a step up on other people that embrace their difference and leverage it to separate themselves from everybody else.
Thank you for sharing that, because that's important for especially, not only high school students, but also adults who, haven't embraced their, what their uniqueness is about them.
That's right.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. No, I appreciate that.
Yeah. So I've got a few people that are going to help me contribute to that because I decided I want more opinions than just mine. And so other bigger guys. And of course, typically if you are of size, you've played professional sports, but I've got a dear friend from high school who owns 26 medical patents, who's 6'5", 300 pounds, who is an uber genius, doesn't have a lick of sports in his bones. But I tell you what, he had to really persevere because he was a little different growing up. But he is just brilliant and a great guy of faith and of science. And so during these times, he was working on a vaccine for Ebola. So when this whole thing rolled out, who do you think the first person I was messaging, going, "Hey, Adam, what's up with this thing?" And he said, "Well, we'll see, we'll see." But anyway, so I want to get people's points of view that are outside, because everybody has their things they have to overcome.
Yeah, and different experiences too.
Right.
Different experiences. Yeah. Wow. So that book is coming when?
so I wrote, I put it out there. I said, I'm going to start, and I have started, and people have told me it doesn't matter. You don't have to start at the beginning. You just have to put stuff down. So I've been putting stuff down, and once I start getting some direction and some other people contributing to it, then I want to then start making it real. And of course, I get a lot of advice. And Michael Gerber, who has written the E-Myth.
I know who he is.
Yes, and so I met him at
several
a
books.
thing,
He's written several.
So he said, I told him about my book, and I said, well, but I'm not a writer. He says, I'm not a writer either. I've only written 28.
Yeah, right.
So he said, write it. He goes, write it. And I thought, because I was telling him I was going to have somebody help me do it. He said, no, write it. And since then, and I get the gist because I've just met so many people that have written books, and they said, "But my first one wasn't very good, but I wrote it." And then
So you have a story, though. You have a great story, and I think it's going to be a book that is definitely going to resonate with a lot of different people all over the country.
Well, and I had one other person endorsed me to do that, and that was Mark Hansen. I met Mark Victor Hansen with Daniel at an event where we were doing another podcast, and and Mark said, I've written a few books, Chicken Soup for the Soul, and all those things.
Yeah. Take their advice, right? And you have to start somewhere.
Yeah, these aren't fly by night guys. So
no, these guys have. I mean, they obviously have the brilliance, and not only that, they have the influence, and all of the stories. There's a lot to that goes into a book, the distribution, and going from the editing to making the whether you're going to do a paperback or a hardback. I mean, there's a lot of things to consider, but just plow through that, because we need that book out there.
I know
we need that. As a former NFL football player, what goes through your mind when you think of the young athletes who dream of being a professional sports figure, yet don't have the support system or the mentor to guide them?
I was very blessed and fortunate. My parents, although neither of them had any sports background at all, supported both my younger brother and I. My little brother is over 6'8", and is still the all-time leading scorer for Azusa Pacific University. Played 3 years overseas basketball.
Yeah.
And but their one thing is, boys, we don't care what you do, so long as it's extracurricular and you carry a B average, and we will support you with a vehicle and your insurance. And just support you. They didn't make it sports, but it was just kind of a dumb moment for he and I because of our size and athletic ability. So, I, as a coach and on high school campuses, I see that quite often. And as a young person, is find it through your coach. The reason why your coaches are there is because they love the sport and they love kids, and they will help you if you ask for it. And I had so many young men, follow me around and ask questions, and it wasn't just about the sport. As a matter of fact, a few years back when I was coaching up in Northern California, each week I would take kids to breakfast at the club Friday mornings. The kids I would earn like an award, and the caveat being we talk about anything but football, because I wanted to hear about them. I wanted to hear about what their plans were. I wanted to hear about what interests them, and I introduced them to other business people. And so is that, if it's something that you want, find it. I was very fortunate where I had a lot of people that wanted me to succeed, like my coach. Because his team, I had another buddy of mine that made it to the NFL. We had 5 kids get Division I scholarships. So that team did not need me. It wasn't like he was sorting me out because he needed me. I still, like I mentioned, was not very good, but he cared about me and wanted me to succeed. So you'll find those people out there. The thing is, the sad thing is when you mention though professional sports, high school was the last time it was any fun. All your buddies are there. Everybody pretty much makes the team. They may not play, but they're there, right? And you're there for your school, and it's just about the camaraderie and the game. Once you get to the next level of collegiate sport, regardless of what it is, there's a vested interest in you, and they're investing in you, and you're getting paid. And now they're really going to start getting paid. But they're paying for your education and all those other things, and so there's an exceeding
more pressure.
Expectation. Yes, a lot of expectation on you.
Yeah.
And then of course now the professional sports, and what I've seen happen in professional sports is really kind of a shame. When we played, and I played back in the 80s, if you made a good play, you went and celebrated with your teammates, and your teammates patted you on the shoulder, patted you on the butt, say, "Hey, great job." If you made a mistake, your teammates rallied behind you. If you see today's sport, when somebody makes a play, they push their teammate aside and they say, "Look at me, look at me." It's about them. And because there's so much money involved, I get it, but it's really a shame to see professional sports kind of change and get away from the team aspect, which is what I love. When I talk to young people, you learn so much in a team atmosphere. You learn how to get along with other people, which are your coworkers. You learn how to get along with a coach that's demanding and maybe you don't get along with. who's going to be your boss. These things that you can learn and transition into life from participating in a team sport is kind of all fraying away, and really not the same. So it's kind of sad, but sort the person out, and your coach is a great resource.
Yes. Yeah. I was hearing, and it was this morning, I think it was on Good Morning America, and they were talking about there would be no Kobe Bryant without Michael Jordan. And, because he had a lot of influence and he was a mentor for Kobe. So it just goes to show that, if people have the right mentor and they have the right, like you pointed out, the coaches in high school, they're the ones that are going to help these kids with the difficult times. And once they get into pro football, I would imagine the pressure is so intense.
Yeah.
And like you said, there's money involved, and there's so much more to factor in, rather than just, playing high school football.
And I'll share one quick story too with you about the importance of especially for those that may be watching this that are in the capacity of a coach, whether it be youth, junior high school, especially because it's the most influential period, or beyond, is that I'm still friends with my high school coach. And he was telling me, he goes, Dave, I'd love to hear you speak sometime. And I said, okay. I'm speaking to the Boys and Girls Club of Garden Grove. And I didn't know there's going to be nearly 500 people there. But I invited him because my story was about how to make a difference in a young person's life. And I told the jump rope story. And I told, about him being such a big part of my life in helping me making the decisions. He's such a humble man. He said to me, he said, Dave, look, all I did was convince you to play football. You did all the work. And I'm like, hey, man, that's just cool stuff. I got to introduce him to 500 people. He's such a humble. He gave me that word, the evil eye. Dave, why are you doing this? I was just here to hear you speak. I didn't want an ovation, and he got an ovation. And and I'm going to interview him for the Mission Sports podcast, the sports camp that we're doing, and because he's just such a great man. And so when I say to young people, go find that coach, that's why they're doing it. They want you to succeed, and that's why they're out there. They're not out there for themselves, for sure.
Yeah. And he never forgot you either. And that's what's so cool about that story is I think, he invested in you at a very early age, and here you are, years later, giving back. And I think that's a great, I think that's great. And kind of in closing, Dave, I know that, we've had a great interview, and I just want you to know how much I appreciate, what you've shared. And I hope that it impacts, not only, our youth, also people in career, transition, and, just organizations that need to hear you speak. And I know, we've been doing some work together, and you've been doing some dynamic podcasts. As far as, the offer that you have, I know you had mentioned you have a special offer. Could you share that with us?
Sure. So, as I mentioned earlier, for both of our programs, both the student program and the career transition program, we want to offer all of your viewers $50 off, and this will be a perpetuity so long as the podcast is up. We're not going to shut it down, and it's under Luminary 50. Just put Luminary and the number 50. And we'll get you $50 off either of the programs. And they're very similar in context. There are some variations because of just the differentiation of what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
But what's great about our program, different than anything else, and both you and your son are aware of it because he went through it, is that ours is the only program that is completely transparent. Meaning, when you get your results, you know exactly why your results are there. The unfortunate thing is that I would say 95% of all of the programs that are in existence we call them black box. They're algorithm driven. They ask you 40 to 80 questions. If not this, then that. If this, then not that. Then how would you rank? And then it goes into the black box and it comes out and says, here's your 5. Here's your 50. No rhyme or reason. Very little explanation, or explanation there may be some, but here are the careers.
Yeah. And then overwhelm sets in because that's way too much to have to figure out.
Or you sit there like I would do if you gave me 5 and architect wasn't in there, then I wanted to be an architect. I'm going to say, well, this is dumb. I want to be an architect. How come it's not in there? So if architect isn't in your top 2, because we get it down to 2 careers for you, if it's not in there, it's because it didn't fit you. It didn't fit your criteria that's important to you and all of your intrinsic characteristics, and you know why it's not there. There's no second guessing, right? And the ones that are there, the cream of the crop, are there because it hit everything that's important to you all along the way of our proprietary process.
Yes.
So anyways, so I'd like to make that offer out to anybody that's viewing, and as long as you keep us up somewhere in existence, then the deal will be there. Just enter the code.
Definitely. And again, there's a Luminary 50/50 is the code to use.
Just Luminary 50. Just Luminary 50.
Yeah. What did I say?
50/50, like a 50/50 bar, which is one of my favorites.
Luminary 50.
I said, oh yeah, I want one of those.
Yeah, right. So again, Dave, thank you so much for being on the podcast, Speaker Central. And to our viewers and our listeners, please subscribe, iTunes, on YouTube. We're on Spotify. We're on several different platforms where you can hear Dave in this amazing interview that we just had with him. And thank you for tuning in. And Dave, again, thank you. And we will see everybody next time.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you, Dave. Everybody take care.